What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Shadicstick dropping some hot frog on this mic. Today we're going to be talking about Sonic Omens, and before we start, I want to say that my opinion about the game itself as just a video game, its quality, level design, gameplay, and all that stuff is kind of separate from the Patreon stuff, though I will say it's somewhat tied in, mostly because money is involved. And so because some degree of money was involved, the standards for this game have been raised no matter what. I believe many should at least try to separate the controversy surrounding the game from the gameplay itself, but it's understandable as to why many people can't do that. I also wanted to say thank you guys for getting this channel as far as you have. Really close to 5,000 subscribers, so hitting the subscribe button and hitting the notification bell would help a lot. But now with that out of the way, let's hop right into the video. So if you don't know already, Sonic Omens was this game that was originally called Sonic 2020 last year. And I was originally going to make a video on it talking about it, but I just wound up not liking it. And I didn't want to upload the video I made on it because I felt like it wasn't good enough in terms of just, the gameplay and stuff. And I just wound up really angry throughout the video. I played the tree level, got mad, deleted the game. It just was not fun. And there was also controversy at the time around Patreon. We'll talk about that later. That's also another reason I didn't want to talk about the game, because I felt like I would have given it some type of, eyes on it. I would have put eyes on something that was making money that shouldn't have been making money. But first, I'll give my opinion on the game, and then we'll talk about the controversy surrounding it, because it somewhat ties together, and I feel like it's important to address both in this video. So, is Sonic Omens actually good? And in my honest opinion, I believe it's not, but here's why. First of all, one of the most basic attacks in all of Sonic, the homing attack, does not function properly. And I'm not the only one who's experienced this. It's something that is needed and is an instrumental part of 3D Sonic games because of Sonic's speed and how hard it is for the player to control Sonic and attack enemies while in this state. So guess what? Sonic Team added homing attack and it works phenomenally in just about every single Sonic game. But its implementation in Sonic Omens is so horrible. It relies on you first turning the camera and Sonic facing the direction the camera is facing. So say for instance you pass a spring, you cannot homing attack to that spring. Say for instance you're in front of the enemy and the enemy is behind you, you're not facing the enemy and the camera isn't really facing the enemy, Sonic can't homing attack the enemy. He just winds up double jumping, and it's ridiculous. This becomes an issue when you're fighting multiple enemies, which there's a lot of rooms in this game where they put like the little combat rooms, most notably from Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic 06, where you kill a bunch of enemies and then you go to the next part of the level. A lot of that is in here, and then it also hurts the player when you're attacking enemies and they're not in a straight line. Say for instance there's a sharp turn or there's a gradual curve, because Sonic much of the time actually winds up missing these enemies. It overall creates for a gameplay experience that's not really fluid. The level beats just don't feel as strong and as fluid as they should be because of this. On top of this, boost does not function properly at all. You should not have to hold forward and boost at the same time. It just doesn't feel right, especially when you're boosting and platforming at the same time. I really like the concept of implementing boost and, an adventure style gameplay, because I think the concept is cool, and I feel like in many regards the game gets things like the controlling of Sonic while he's boosting right, because you have much, more fluid control over Sonic. You don't have to really worry about drifting in this game. But at the same time, it's not something that's perfect, because there's many times where you want a very precise turn and you can't get it. And I feel like that's merely because of the way boost works, because you can't hold boost and just turn right. You have to hold boost, then push forward. It's really awkward. Next, let's talk about bosses, because this game's bosses are all horrible. I think the first boss is the best example of what's wrong with the bosses. First of all, they're damage sponges, so they absorb all the damage. It takes a long time to kill them. And it's really irritating how many hits it takes to kill them, considering how much time you have to wait in between each hit, because that wait time becomes progressively longer throughout the fight, because the boss's attacks and attack strings get longer with each phase of the boss. On top of that, most notably with the first boss fight, the hitboxes just are not right. There's something wrong with them. In many cases, they just feel like they're way too big, and it feels like there's no time to recover in between boss phases, or you hitting the boss and damaging them and them starting to attack again. Most notably, the first boss can jump to anywhere on the screen during his last few phases. And because of that, you can get hit despite him not actually touching you at all. And there's an attack he has that kind of goes full screen where he hits you, and outside of boosting, there's no way you can really dodge it because the hitbox of it is so massive that you get hit no matter what. And this wouldn't be an issue if, you had infinite boost throughout the stage, but you just don't. Combine this with enemies being strewn throughout the place while you're fighting the boss, and homing attack not really functioning properly, and you create a bad time. And don't get me wrong, there are things I like about this game. I like the first Chow Island Paradise stage, not the tutorial, but the stage after that. I think that stage is actually kind of decent. But overall, I found every other stage to just not be fun. Even White Jungle, which is a stage from my favorite 3D Sonic game of all time, Sonic Adventure 2. And White Jungle really suffers from a lot of the choices that the developer made. One of my biggest gripes with White Jungle is actually the way they handled automation. A lot of the sections that were originally fully automated are no longer fully automated. Because of this, a lot of them just wind up not working or expecting the player to do something arbitrary that they wouldn't have in the original game. Most notably the vine pools. And on top of this, I feel like they didn't really redesign the stage in a smart way considering the amount of speed you gain throughout the stage. There are many times where you just fly over entire sections of the stage expecting to be able to recover or expecting to be able to go on to the next stage of the game because Sonic games typically allow you to do that, and you just can't because the stage has not been, adjusted to fit the player's size and speed. I also feel like a lot of the level design in this game makes no sense. There's a lot of the time where you have two splits or two routes, which are exactly the same for the most part, except for one is slightly longer, or they require you to pull a full 180 and go backwards without them really notifying you of doing this, so you wind up getting lost in a lot of stages. I think the worst stage in this game is possibly the tree stage, because it's honestly one of the worst stages I've ever played in a Sonic game. It feels like Wacky Workbench without the springs to launch you upwards. There's just a lot of unnecessary verticality to this stage without any semblance of speed. And then again, it doesn't help that the paths that you take in this game really have no clear route or where they're supposed to go. So again, in this stage especially, you just get lost or you just wind up not knowing what to do. You combine this with the game's graphics, which in some respect they look good, in some respect I don't think they look good because I feel like it's too much sometimes, because the game a lot of the time winds up being simultaneously too bright and too dark. I feel like I shouldn't have to turn down the post-processing to see what's right in front of me. And there are many stages in this game where the game just becomes simply too dark to see anything or too bright to see anything. I think the greatest example of this are the tornado stages, which honestly, some of the worst stages I've ever played in a video game. Especially when they add in the wind physics, which make you have less control of the tornado. Everything you touch essentially makes you take damage, and then the tornado itself winds up moving and bumping into walls as you go. It just winds up not being a fun time at all. Couple this with super dark levels, and the post-processing making it much darker, and then this levels being relatively all the same color. Like there's literally portions of the stages where it's just all red with the tornado, and you just have a bad time. You do. It's just, there's no other way to put it. But before I end off on all my criticisms of the game, I will give it something that I think is really good about the game, and that's the music. Some people may say, it doesn't really fit Sonic. I don't think Sonic has one specific sound. We have everything from super orchestral tracks to alternative music to jazz to rock and roll to rap to EDM, and coming all the way back to classical music. And some themes in the games even combine all three, most notably His World from Sonic 06. It combines rap, classical, and rock and roll to create one of the greatest theme songs of any video game of all time. And I think this game has a really great soundtrack. And whoever made it, hats off to you. But those are my criticisms of the game. I just don't think the game is good. It feels like they had a lot of cool concepts, and then they put them in the game, and then they didn't mind polishing them. They just kind of threw everything together. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the controversy. So what's the issue with this game, being backed by Patreon at any level? Well, originally many of the game's updates and builds were locked behind Patreon, so you had to essentially pay for builds of the game. This would be fine for an original IP, but this game uses Sega's characters, their likenesses, and their IP. It's just unjustifiable. Many people argue against this, saying either A, it's gone now, or B, what about fan art, modders, etc. To the A portion of this, for a long time they were making a substantial amount of money off of the project via Patreon. But then they lost a considerable amount of backers after getting called out about the Patreon, but then again the Patreon is still up. While much of Sonic Omens / Sonic 2020 stuff has been wiped, it was less out of sincerity and more out of trying to stay out of trouble. From what it looks like, they're still making considerable money, considering that Sonic Omens is really the only thing the studio or this guy is working on. And let's move on to the B portion. I'm gonna keep it real with you. One of the biggest reasons why there's no issue with fan art and even mods making money for most people is because a lot of this doesn't stand as substitute to what Sega's providing for the series. These aren't substitutes for the main games. And on top of that, mods require you to even have the main games for them to function. You have to buy, say for instance you have a Sonic Forces mod. You created your own level for Sonic Forces. You have to own Sonic Forces. You have to have spent money on Sonic Forces for that mod to even work. So in many cases it feels like it's a win-win for both parties. Whereas with Sonic Omens, it is a standalone game that requires nothing from Sega. You do not give any of your money to Sega. You're giving it all to Ouroboros Studio, whoever the developer is. And don't get me wrong, while I don't condone the monetization of mods, it's a much different situation than a whole game being made from the ground up using Sega's IP and characters, and then having portions of it or just having the game itself locked behind a paywall. And that's where many people take issue with this and why many people criticize the game in a lot of ways, because this game has generated money. There is no reason for, any of the issues in the game to exist if it has generated money. You see, when you pay money for something, the standards in your idea of what you should be getting raise. You expect higher quality out of a $60 game than a $20 game, and you expect more quality out of a $20 game than a free-to-play game. That's just how it goes. While it may not always be true that, games at those levels surpass, games at, lower price brackets, that's generally what you expect. You expect more polish. You expect higher quality. You expect more work to have gone into the project. And that's what many people expect with Sonic Omens. I want to leave on this note. Once your fan game has made profit, it is no longer a fan game. It's a bootleg. It's a ripoff. That's what it is. And that's what Sonic Omens is. It is a bootleg. It was being locked behind a paywall, so you essentially had to pay for the game at some, point in time. But I don't know. How do you guys feel about it in that comment section down below? Do you like Sonic Omens and not agree with the Patreon stuff? Do you agree with the Patreon stuff? Do you think it's fine that they should have a Patreon? Do you like the game? Do you dislike the game? Tell me how you feel about it in that comment section down below. Make sure you follow your boy on Twitter at MobShaddick100. Let's try to get your boy to like 350 followers. And make sure you join the Discord. Links, as always, are down in the description below. But don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Share this video out with your friends. Remember, hot Faraga turns to cold Blizzaga. Make sure you check out some of my other videos. Peace. Kiss, kiss.